Whoa, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Futurecast on the Player Profiler Radio Network and podcast and YouTube channel. I am Cody Carpentier, and we're back from the NFL Draft. It's Friday, May 5th. We're exactly a week postpartum of the NFL Draft, day 2, where we saw running backs like Roschon Johnson get drafted, baby, to the Chicago Bears. Actually, it didn't happen on Friday. That happened on Saturday, but you get the freaking point. We had a great time in Kansas City with the entire crew, streaming picks 1 through 259 alongside some good friends, Matty Kiwoom, Alex Dunlap, Onan, Matt, Jack. It was awesome. Just, putting a cap on this 2023 NFL draft process that takes, in culmination, really it's January through May 1st. But, we're still talking about it now. Now you got all your rookie drafts this week, next week, last week. And of course, it never stops because now we're on to 2024. But before we move on to 2024, this week, I wanted to write up a couple grades, a couple articles on the AFC and the NFC draft grades. And I don't want to do it the generic way. I'm not going to come in here and I'm not going to give everybody A's, and I'm not going to go A, B plus, and have nobody get C's, D's, and F's, because there is some dudes and there is some teams that completely nuked and failed the NFL draft this year. And it was putrid for some teams, drafting punchers and kickers. So I was working on this algorithm all week, an algorithm grading scale, whatever you want to call it, composite score, composite grading that takes into account player values based on my top 200 list, team values based on knowledge of pick selection and value at the position in the given draft. So some of you may say, yeah, but in a standard draft, this player right here, he wouldn't be a value here, but we go based off of importance. And the important positions are quarterback, edge, tackle, and then corner, and then center, wide receiver, D-line, guard, tight end, or linebacker, then tight end, then running back, safety, and then kickers and punters at the bottom with 0. They get 0 levels of importance for points. And then, of course, I weigh how many players went in the top 100 at each position, how many players went in the top 16 at each position, and how many players went overall in the entire draft at each position. And it gives you a weighted scale, weighted grade across the entire draft. So I'm going to jump in here. We're going to talk about all of the NFC grades today, and we're going to break down each team and my favorite selection for each team and why I think they are graded so high and why some I think are graded so low. But first, we're going to get an ad out of the way, and we're going to pay the bills because we appreciate you guys for staying tapped in, staying locked in on Player Profiler YouTube channel.
Oh, hey, it's Mr. Breakout Finder coming at you. The Breakout Finder features 3 key tools: a database of metrics that include speed score, college dominator, breakout age, but also Breakout Finder only stats like dynamic score, level of competition, teammate score. All of these things are part of the overall Breakout Finder algorithm that pinpoints the probability that a player will break out. Everyone's talking about my model does this and my model does that. Well, we give you the data points that go into the model. We have a feature that lets you compare players, and then we give you the precise probability of every wide receiver, every running back, sorted and filterable by class year. So when I'm talking to my friends and I need to show them why I'm so bullish on player X, I pull out the Breakout Finder and bam, there he is. So go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's $5 to get the Breakout Finder, and then a couple extra bucks to get some of these additional enhanced stats. Go download it and thank me later.
Bam! As the Podfather would say, Marvin Mims comes in 3rd overall on the Breakout Finder at the wide receiver position. And some are going to say, ew, I don't want to draft Marvin Mims. Why would I draft Marvin Mims? But when you look back at the career arc of Sean Payton and you say, all right, Sean Payton, so we're talking about the Denver Broncos right now. Marvin Mims is going to be a value, is going to stay a value because it's just a tough button to click. Nobody wants to click that Marvin Mims button despite him going to Denver. Remember, Sean Payton's first year in New Orleans, he drafted Kenny Stills in the 5th round of the NFL draft. The next year, he took Brandon Cooks 20th overall, and then that following March, he traded Kenny Stills to the Miami Dolphins for a 3rd round pick. So Kenny Stills was a 5th rounder. He traded him to Miami for a 3rd and a linebacker after Kenny Stills, I think, had 640 and 900 yards receiving. I think that Marvin Mims is going to slot into this Denver Broncos offense as the Russell Wilson, Taylor Lockett, the Sean Payton, Brandon Cooks Marvin Mims is going to stay a value. And on the Breakout Finder right now, he's the number 3 wide receiver with a 44.8% breakout rating. Marvin Mims, baby. It's a value. I just took him at the 204 in a rookie draft, 203 actually, in a rookie draft. I'm not sorry about it. I like taking him there. Let's talk about the AFC West. I'm already in the AFC West. Let's stay in the AFC West, and let's talk about these Denver Broncos right now. Their positional value composite grading came out 7th. Their player value composite score was 5th, and they made 5 total selections. Marvin Mims, 63rd overall. Drew Sanders, linebacker out of Arkansas, 67th overall. Riley Moss, 83rd. J.L. Skinner, a safety out of Boise State, was 183rd. And Alex Forsyth, a center from Oregon, was 257th. All 5 selections I thought were fantastic. They come out with an A-, 104% grade across the board. I think when you're looking at what they did with not having a pick until the 3rd round, with Marvin Mims going off 63rd overall, they moved up, I think, into the late part of the second round, because they had, I think, originally it was like 67, 68 or 66, 67, whichever way it was in round 3. They move up. They get Marvin Mims. I think this is a player they wanted, the player they needed. They went up and attacked him. They traded up for him. It fits in this Denver offense because, again, they had KJ Hamler, who now has a pec tear. He's out 4 to 6 months. And they have Jerry Jeudy, who they've obviously been talking about trading. Cortland Sutton, is he dust? Is he not dust? I think Marvin Mims is going to be a guy this year. I mean, it's a sleeper dark horse candidate to be the rookie of the year, I think, is Marvin Mims when you're looking across the board at their positioning. Let's see if I can pull up this scale here. So 104.6%. I had this sorted over here, and I got to bring it up. Lost my rhythm. All right, that is 6th overall among all teams in the NFL, according to the grading system, just behind the Colts and Steelers. Denver Broncos, again, 2nd best draft in the AFC West, I think. The Los Angeles Chargers come in next. They had a 5th overall grade in the positional value composite score and 20th overall in the player value composite score. They took Quentin Johnson, 21st overall. Tuli Tuiapalutu from USC, 54th. Deion Henley, linebacker from Washington State, was my favorite selection, 85th overall out of Washington State. He was a guy that went down there to the Senior Bowl, and he had a great week. He's very athletic. He's 6 foot tall, 221 pounds. I think overall what Deion brings is just a speed. It's kind of like that Kaiser White role that we saw a couple years ago. So I think he fits in great right there, 85th overall. Tuli Tuiapalutu, some people thought as an early 2nd rounder, potentially sneak into the 1st. But generally 54th was about, I think, where he was projected to go according to most mocks. And then, of course, Quentin Johnson, 21st overall, kind of a Mike Williams-esque replacement. The interesting thing that they did do, though, is they brought in Darius Davis, who is a punt return, kick return specialist from TCU, runs the 4.3s. And then they also brought in Max Dugan in the 7th round, the quarterback from TCU. So they brought back that team that played the national championship last year. Dugan at quarterback, Darius Davis at receiver, and Quentin Johnston at receiver as well. It's interesting that they didn't, take Kendre in the 2nd round or some shit like that. But the Chargers had a good draft to give them a B-. That's 88% overall on the scoring. Again, the scoring for this is going to range from 116.3%, which is an A++ for the Kansas City Chiefs, all the way down to a 25.4% F- for the Washington Commanders, because the Commanders completely nuked this. But to talk about the Commanders, you have to drop back in on the next episode of the Futurecast where we talk about the NFC. I appreciate all you guys in the chat already. I see a few of you guys in here. Franz, Pigeon, John, Randall. I mean, Kenny Stills was the perfect best ball wide receiver, if we're being honest. That 2nd year, he had 900 yards down there in New Orleans. I mean, I think that's what you're thinking about Marvin Mims in Denver this year. Say word. What's up, dude? What's up? How we doing? So I like the Los Angeles Chargers draft. They added Jordan McFadden, a tackle on day 3. Scott Matlock, a defensive tackle on day 3. A lot of this is positional adding, right? So when you break down, I'm trying to navigate between a couple different cheat sheets right now, but when you break down really the difference between attacking positions at certain spots in the drafts, it means a lot when it comes to these gradings. So if I bring it over here, the best rounds to attack position by position, and this is how the grading came out as far as value goes across position and player. Quarterback, edge, and offensive tackle should be your targets in the top 16. In the top 100, you should be targeting corner, defensive line, wide receiver, and tight end. And then in the top 259, so between 100 and 259, you should be attacking linebacker, center, guard, safety. Notice I did not say running back because running back is a pretty it's a kind of a median across the board between the top 16 all the way through. So you have a 5.5 score from 100 to 259. You have a 5.2 from 17th overall to 100. And you have an 8.4 in the top 16. So generally, if there's an elite guy in the top 16, you're going to take him and he's going to hit. But otherwise, it doesn't really matter where you take him between 17 and 259. Generally, you're just trying to take after, and again, we're not taking into account body types, play styles, the athleticism, and all things like that in this grading right now. It's more so just positional and things like that. And as John in the chat would say, replaceable running backs. That's the point right there, because the running backs are all replaceable. They have the shortest lifespan among all players in the NFL right now. And then also the kickers and the punters receive a 0.0, and it actually goes against your grading because you're an idiot to draft a punter or a kicker. And there's a team in this conversation today that drafted not one kicker, but also a punter. And you're an idiot because you can find guys off the street. You might as well bring in 16 of them, and I guarantee you one of them will be an adequate kicker. Blair Walsh is still out there. Not saying he's adequate, but the Las Vegas Raiders positional value composite score was 28th among the entire NFL. Player value composite score was 10th. And again, player value composite score, as I break this down, you guys are going to say, what the fuck does player value composite score mean? What's positional value composite score? Positional value composite score is what I just talked about, attacking the positions in the right rounds. Again, hitting edge, hitting tackle, hitting quarterback, the top 16. And then in the second round, in the third round, in the fourth round, you're hitting the corner, D-line, receiver, tight end, those positions, and then so on and so forth, like I just talked about. Player value composite score is essentially a delta of a plus minus based on my top 200. So yes, it is kind of biased towards my top 200, but again, my top 200 or my top 100 big board this year was top 20 among all in the space. So take that for what you want. It ain't bragging. It's just facts. Player value composite score, 10th overall for the Las Vegas Raiders. They made 9 selections. Tyree Wilson was their first selection at the board, 7th overall. He fell to them. It was a conversation that he would go 2 to Houston, 3 to Arizona. He ends up falling to 7 to the Las Vegas Raiders. They also have Max Crosby, and they have Chandler Jones, and of course, Clelin Ferrell, who was a failure. At 35, they traded up a couple spots to get Michael Mayer at 35. They were trying to trade into the end of round 1 with the Kansas City Chiefs at 31 overall, per Peter King, to get Michael Mayer in the first round at 31st overall. They ended up still getting him here at 35. Love that selection. The value is not quite in love with tight end going there at 35 because tight ends you should be taking closer to the 80, 90 marker, but it works. It ships. It fits. Byron Young, defensive tackle, big guy from Alabama, goes 70th overall. Trey Tucker, my best selection here, taking a wide receiver at pick 100. The best area to take a wide receiver is in this 70 to 100 area for NFL terms. This is not a fantasy term. This is NFL terms. You get a 24.1% hit rate in that marker. Sorry, not 24% hit rate, 24.1 grade in that hit rate for taking a wide receiver at pick 100. And then Jacorian Bennett at 104, cornerback from Maryland, and Aiden O'Connell, a quarterback from Purdue. Now, very closely behind that Trey Tucker selection from Cincinnati is Chris Smith, a safety from Georgia, who falls to 170. I think Chris Smith is going to be a guy that can come in and give you that work day one. He's a dog. He at the combine, I think he was one of the most outstanding safeties as far as his appearance, his interview, and his dog mentality. Trey Tucker, though, I think when you're talking about a guy that Hunter Renfrow is making $16 million this year, Trey Tucker can take that job and not give it back by about week 8, week 9, I think. And right now, I was just talking to Billy Muzio and Theo about this. Trey Tucker is sitting about 7th in the pecking order, and he's still projected 59 fantasy points this year. And I would venture to bet that the most of those 59 fantasy points are going to come after week 8. This is going to be a guy that late in the season, injuries happen, Renfrow fades, Trey Tucker's got the gas and the consistency to where all of a sudden he catches 4 balls in the fourth quarter of a game. That next week, Buddy is going to be playing by the middle of the first quarter, and he's going to have a 9-10 reception game. He's better than Greg Dortch. He's that same type, that same body type, but he's Mr. Consistency. Trey Tucker is going to make a lot of people very happy and also very pissed off. The Las Vegas Raiders draft overall was a C, 70.7%, directly in the middle of the pack for the entire NFL draft. I can actually give you exactly where it's at, is according to, but it's 70.7, which is 19th. So it's directly in the middle of the pack. Sort this so it's a lot easier to talk about. All right. And then the last team in the AFC West, of course, is the defending Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. An absolutely dominant affair on the draft boards here. Positional value, composite score, first overall with a 110.32. Only two teams crested 100 in that score. And then a player value composite score of 6, which is 19th overall in the class. And they made 7 selections. Again, they lost Frank Clark. I went on the Arrowhead Addicts podcast on Wednesday night before the NFL draft, and I talked about one guy that they needed to add. His name is Felix Anudike-Uzomah, edge rusher from Kansas State. Not only is he an internal state guy, but he fits the exact clone replica of what you want to replace Frank Clark with. 31st overall, he's there. They hammer it. They take him, and my mock draft jumps into the top 20 in the 2023 cycle. Rashee Rice, 55th overall. It's not the best value, but again, we're talking about that range where you should be targeting wide receivers, not round 1, but later into round 2 and into round 3. It's a little early for Rashee, but it's a good, okay value. Wanya Morris, the best selection that they did make, was right here, 92nd overall. Wanya Morris played tackle for Oklahoma. And then, of course, after the draft, the Chiefs went out, and this does not get calculated into the draft, into the score here. But the Chiefs went out and they added an offensive tackle. They've added 2 offensive tackles this offseason while losing 2 offensive tackles this offseason. They added Donovan Smith from Tampa Bay, as well as they had Jawan Taylor before that. I see a lot of Nads talk in the chat. Nads for life. I'm getting a Nads tattoo. What are Nads? What are Nads? Well, if you tune in on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, Nads is the mock draft mania champions. That would be your boy Matty Kiwoom, your boy Cody Carpentier, and your boy Sethi Dewald. We got one draft in last weekend at the draft house, and it was the mock draft mania tag team championship. Matty Kiwoom and I drafted from the 111 to 112, and we beat Theo and Jack in a 1 QB tight end premium. You can find that video on Player Profile's YouTube channel. The champs are in the building. New Age Alpha Dogs. That's what NADS stands for. Appreciate you guys in the chat. Champs, baby. All right. Moving on to the next division. Again, the AFC, I don't know if I sent over this grade. Kansas City Chiefs, A++, 116.3% across the board. Let's talk about the AFC South because they had a lot of top-end picks. Houston Texans got a B+, 97.0%. Their composite value for position was 11th. Composite value for players, 8th. So they had a really good draft across the board, but it was kind of pushed up by these 2 selections that they did make. They drafted CJ Stroud 2nd and Will Anderson 3rd. A lot of people have a lot of opinions on this draft for a couple reasons. They traded away their 2024 first-round pick. That has nothing to do with my grades this year because we're going year by year, right? So next year, when they don't have that first-round pick, that's going to affect their grading naturally, of course, unless they completely hammer that draft despite missing that first pick. It's going to be tough because that's like a Marvin Harrison, that's a Caleb Williams, that's a Olu Folowash. I can't say his name. I'll get it down, though. Across me, I got 365 days. They take Stroud 2 overall. They take Will Anderson 3 overall. Juice Scruggs, a center from Penn State. Nice pick. Tank Dell, right in that range, 70th to 100. They take him 69. Edge, linebacker, center, safety, and then another wide receiver, 205 overall. The best selection that they made to me was Xavier Hutchinson at pick 205, a guy that can come in and beat out Robert Woods midway through the season and play that slot role and dominate that slot role because he was an All-American at Iowa State, 167 targets last year without Brock Purdy. And I think he plays directly into that JSN role. Again, Houston Texans, B+, 97%. Good job. Jacksonville Jaguars had a lot of picks. They made 13 selections, but they did not have the best draft. Definitely did not have the best draft. Very below middling. They got a D, 62.5% D for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 23rd in positional value, 24th in player value, 13 selections. Their first selection was their best selection, Anton Harrison, a tackle from Oklahoma. And really all that does is replace a guy that is out on suspension right now. Again, so that doesn't help. Cam Robinson's out on suspension. They bring in Anton Harrison. Anton Harrison's good, but again, doesn't really help the team much. Brenton Strange, 61 overall tight end, a little bit of a reach. Tank Bigsby was probably one of the better value picks they did have during the draft. Ventrell Miller from Florida, 121. And then they just started hammering darts. Linebacker, edge, linebacker, safety, corner, safety, tackle, D tackle, edge, wide receiver. But again, the positional value just was not there. They didn't have much of it as far as getting guys at value. Instead, they reached on a bunch of guys. And again, the positional value targeting guys in the wrong rounds puts Jacksonville down here near the bottom. D, 62.5%, around the 25th area overall. The Tennessee Titans, I think, had a sneaky solid draft. They only had 6 selections. They were 9th in positional value and 13th in player value. 6 selections. The best one, as Matty Q in the chat would say, Peter Skoronski. Would you rather have Peter Skoronski at 11 and Will Levis at 33, or would you rather have Will Levis at 11 and O'Styrens Torres at 33? This is the argument all the time for situations alike when you come back and you're like, well, would you rather have Derrick Henry at 46 and what is it? It's Zeke. It's the Zeke thing. Would you rather have Zeke, whatever it was, 4th, and then a cornerback at 46, or would you rather have Jalen Ramsey at 4 and Derrick Henry at 46? It's the conversation that you always have to hindsight. But hindsight, this is where Tennessee got this right. They take Skoronski, the lineman, because the line needed much help. Levis, 33 value, quarterback, 33 overall. Tyja Spears, solid area for running back, 81st. They get a tight end, 147, not too early. And then Jalen Duncan, an insane value at the offensive tackle position from Maryland, goes 186. And then they throw an athletic dart late, 228, Colton Dowell from Tennessee Martin. Tennessee Titans get a B, 90.9%. Good draft for the Tennessee Titans. And Ran Carthen in his first draft with the Titans. But the best draft from the AFC South goes to none other than the Indianapolis Colts. They took 12 darts at this draft, 10th in positional value composite, 3rd in player value composite. Again, when I read all these things, it might be hard for you to understand them via podcast. But on playerprofiler.com today, at the end of the day, Friday, this article will be live on Player Profiler. And if you'd like to follow along, just go to the NFL draft section and you will see all these grades broken down by the AFC, by division, and by team. So you can see the entire list of guys that the Indianapolis Colts drafted, from Anthony Richardson all the way to Jake Witt, all 12 guys. The Colts finished with an A, 110.1% draft. Again, excellent work by Chris Ballard. They come in 5th overall. Richardson 4th, Julius Brents 44th, Josh Downs 79th. Positional value targeting was on point for most of this draft. Adetomoye Adebawore 110, a guy that was projected to be much earlier into like the 40s and the 50s. Darius Rush 138. That was my best pick in this draft. But again, Adetomoye was a great value. Blake Freeland was a great value. Evan Hull was a good value, 176 overall. The athletic tight end Will Mallory. Daniel Scott is a sleeper safety at 158. And of course, Jake Witt. If you haven't listened to Dane Brugler's write-up on Jake Witt, you're missing out on the Northern Michigan prospect that's hardly ever played football in his life. But the athleticism is there. And he locked down one of the best edge rushers in Division II history, Caleb Murphy. Indianapolis Colts, A, 110.1%. Let's move on to the AFC East, an ever-evolving division. The Bills got a D. The Dolphins got a C-. The Patriots got a C, and the Jets got a C. A division of growth and maturity over the last decade had a very mediocre draft, to say the least. The Jets, again, traded for Aaron Rodgers, traded a bunch of picks. They traded, back from 13 to 15. They got rid of pick 42, and they got rid of a pick next year conditionally. They added Will McDonald, 15th overall, to add to the edge. They added Joe Tippmann, a center from Wisconsin, at 43 to protect their all-pro quarterback. Great selection. That's my best selection on the team. And then they kind of make a weird selection, 143 overall, with Israel Abanikanda, the athlete from Pitt. And on the phone call, they said, there was a great Pitt running back that came to the Jets by the name of Curtis Martin. We need you to follow those footsteps. Now, that's like a positive note to say to somebody, but to actually think that, you have Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Zonovan Knight, all in the locker room is kind of a weird thing. We'll see what happens. Maybe it's tell that Breece Hall's not 100% and they want to get somebody else in there with some burst and some athleticism, but this is a similar profile to what Breece had from an athletic stance. Zaire Barnes from Western Michigan, linebacker, corner, tackle, tight end in the hundreds and 200s, and Zach Kuntz to finish it out at pick 220 for the New York Jets. So that'll be a big donkey like Aaron Rodgers had in Green Bay with Mercedes Lewis, but it'll be Zach Kuntz now. The New England Patriots had a very odd draft, but I think that it was very solid. 25th in positional value and 9th in player value. If the positional value would have been targeted a little bit better in these two spots, I think this draft catapults from 77.5% C up to the 90th percent area. The two picks that fucked them. They took kicker Chad Ryland from Maryland at 112, and they took a punter, Bryce Behringer, at pick 192 from Michigan State. In my grades and my scoring, you do not get bonus points. You get negative points for drafting kickers and punters. I'm sorry, Pat McAfee. I fucking love you. But you get negative points for drafting kickers and punters because you can pick them up off the street. You can teach them how to get the work done. You do not draft a kicker or a punter in the top 150 or period if you're in my book. So you're welcome. I'm sorry, Bill. That's how it works. Christian Gonzalez goes 17th overall of value. He falls to them at 17. A guy that I thought would fall to 17. I thought Deonte Banks would actually replace him. Deonte Banks didn't. Deonte Banks actually fell as well. Christian Gonzalez falls 17. Great value for the New England Patriots. Kyan White, 46. At one point, the edge rusher from Georgia Tech was considered a first-round pick. Marty Mapu, my best selection for the New England Patriots, goes from Sac State to the Patriots at 76th overall. I think Daniel Jeremiah and I were the only ones to have him top 80 in our big boards. Jake Andrews, a center from Troy. Didn't they just have a center named Andrews that lasted a decade? David. City Sal, guard. Antonio Mafi, guard. Amir Speed, corner. Isaiah Bolden, corner. Keishan Booty, receiver. Demario Douglas, receiver. Those are the positions you should be targeting on day 3. Corner, guard, receiver. Don't put the punter there. Don't put the kicker there. And we're good. That's all I'm asking. That's all I ask. That's all I would need. The Miami Dolphins made 4 selections in this draft, the least out of any team in the NFL. They were 16th in positional value and 18th in player value. Again, those 4 selections, the first of which was 51st overall. They took Cam Smith from South Carolina, seatbelt corner, and he's going to slot in right behind Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard, and I think he's going to learn for a year, and then, of course, one of these guys is going to depart, retire, whatever happens, and he's going to go zoop. Because, again, they just declined the 5th-year option for Noah Igbenogany from Auburn, who was a first-round pick a couple years ago. Cam Smith is better. 84th overall, Devon Achane. Everyone's allured with the speed that Devon Achane brings from Texas A&M. Should be interesting. 84th overall instead of 51st. Achane fits well behind Mostert and Wilson. I think he's going to get enough work in here. But from a fantasy perspective, I'm out. 197, Elijah Higgins, tight end, Stanford. Love it. Great. Devin Funchess-esque. He's a homeless man, Straylon Burks, and he's going to play tight end because of it. He's 235, 240 pounds. He switched from receiver to tight end at the Senior Bowl. I love Elijah Higgins as tight end. And then Ryan Hayes, offensive tackle from Michigan, 238 overall. Again, getting a tackle this late is good value, but Hayes is not of the upper echelon or a guy I probably would have thrown a dart on. Why not throw that dart on? When did Witt go? Witt from the Colts went 236. Oh, so they got donkeyed. They got peed on by 2 spots. Jake Witt went 236. Okay, so it is what it is. The Bills get a D, 60.0%. They took a tight end in round 1, Dalton Kincaid. Not good. They got value on Osiris Torrance, 59th overall, a guy that was considered to be a first-round conversation. From Florida, a guard. Dorian Williams. They're trying to replace Tremaine Edmonds, who was a first-round pick at one point from Virginia Tech. Dorian Williams, a linebacker from Tulane, 91st overall. Good value, but he's 6 foot tall, 225 pounds. He's not 6'4", 250 like Tremaine Edmonds. Justin Shorter, is just a guy that they're trying to replace Gabriel Davis with Gabriel Davis Jr. That's Justin Shorter. It's a good value pick, wide receiver here at pick 150. He's a massive human, 6'3", 225 pounds, jacked out of his mind. And then they throw a dart on a guard and a corner late, solid. But the values overall across the board were not there as far as positional attack. And the Bills paid for it with a grade of D at 60%. A lot of people love Kincaid. I do not love the Kincaid pick. I do not value tight ends in round 1 to be worthwhile. I've talked to a couple executives about this, and they are of the same ilk when it comes to the tight end position, and that is of forcing that tight end position into round 2 and 3, because when you talk about the tight end position, you're hitting much more than not on day 2 and day 3 than you are on day 1. You look at round 3, for example, just over the last 6 years, Austin Hooper in 2016, Jonnu Smith in 2017, Mark Andrews in 18, Dawson Knox in 19, Adam Troutman in 20, Tommy Tremble in 21, and Greg Dulcich in 22. Why not wait until the 3rd round and get a Tucker Kraft or something like this? Also, didn't this Travis Kelce guy go in the 3rd as well? I think that's why you need to start pushing off, because the round 1 guys are not hitting at the same rate that these middling round guys are. Let's finish this off with the AFC North. Another team that gets a lot of hugs and kisses because of their draft is the Baltimore Ravens. We'll keep them for last because that's kind of an exciting one I'd like to talk about. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns, though. They get an A-, 103.4%. They didn't pick until 74th overall when they took Bishop Gorman, 2018 prospect, Cedric Tillman from Tennessee, 74th overall to play outside wide receiver. It's an interesting addition to this wide receiver room that has Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell, Anthony Schwartz, guys like that. I would assume Cedric Tillman's probably going to slot in behind Amari Cooper and be the number 2 on his side. Siaka Ika, 98th overall defensive tackle from Baylor. He's going to be a weapon along the defensive line for Cleveland. DeJuan Jones, a 6'8", 375-pound tackle, goes a 111th overall. The question was, is he Mekhi Becton? Is he Daniel Falele? Is he Trent Brown? Is he Orlando Brown? He goes 111 right in the middle of the draft. Best selection, I think, from Ohio State, because I think it's a guy that you can learn for a year, teach him the ways. Edge, 126 overall, Isaiah McGuire, very big sleeper at the edge position. And then they go back to Bishop Gorman 2018 with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 140th overall. Thompson-Robinson had the strongest arm in the class at the NFL Combine when it comes to the velocity testing. Dorian Thompson-Robinson played with Cedric Tillman at Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas. 2 guys, very interesting. I love these stories. I think last year it was like D'Angelo Malone and somebody else from Chicago that played high school together, went their different ways, and then came back in the NFL, got drafted to the same team in the same draft. Thompson-Robinson and Tillman is that this year. They go Cameron Mitchell, corner, at 142 overall. Now, remember, they took Greg Newsome last year, so now they got a corner from Northwestern in back-to-back years. And then Luke Whippler fell to 190 overall. Was talking to Anand at the draft. He's an Ohio State fan. He thought that Luke maybe got some bad advice throughout the process that caused him to fall to 190. Thought maybe he should have came back to school. But nonetheless, the talent that Whippler brings, 190 is a great value. Should have been closer to the 100 area. A-, 103.4 for the Cleveland Browns. Now, the gutter of the AFC North is a team that is probably the best team in the AFC North, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals, 12th in positional value composite and 26th in player value composite. They actually had a negative player value composite score. I loved the Miles, love the Miles Murphy grade, though. 28th overall, they get him in the draft. But they also had Trey Hendrickson already on the roster as Sam Hubbard. They're adding edge, which is smart to do. You watch what Philadelphia is starting to do. It's great. That's the best selection on the team. DJ Turner, a small corner that burns. DJ Ivy in the 7th, a small corner from Miami. They took a punter, though, in round 7 as well. Again, just don't take punters, don't take kickers. They added Andre Yosevach, a 24-year-old wide receiver from Princeton. They took Charlie Jones, a 25-year-old wide receiver from Purdue. And they took Chase Brown, a 24-year-old running back from Illinois, as well as Jordan Battle from Alabama, a safety that was once thought of as a top 40 selection. So a good name value draft for Cincinnati, but not a good player value and positional value. Not a good player value draft for the Cincinnati Bengals. C-, 68%. Now let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. We got 2 teams left, the Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2 teams that I think have a lot of growing to do. On draft night, Lamar Jackson signs his contract with the Baltimore Ravens and he returns. And on draft weekend, the Baltimore Ravens smashed the draft. They took Zay Flowers 22nd overall. They take Trenton Simpson 86th, linebacker from Clemson. What are we doing here? You got Patrick Queen on the roster already. You got Roquan Smith on the roster already. I don't know how they're going to fit all three of the guys in the same room, but they're going to try to do it for at least for 2023. Best selection, 86th overall, Trenton Simpson. Tavius Robinson from Ole Miss, sleeper edge rusher as well. And Caillou Blue Kelly, a corner at 157 from Stanford. I think Caillou Blue is a guy with this defensive backfield that has been banged up year after year after year. Caillou Blue is a guy that can come in day one. His dad played in the NFL. He is a professional corner. He was one of those guys down at the Senior Bowl that dominated. And he was just really, when I say professional, like he was on top of everybody. He was on top of the game. Of course, Julius Brents gets the fame, but Caillou Blue has the name. And he was a guy down there at the Senior Bowl that really did put on a show. 157 overall. Malisala Alumave Lolua, a tackle from Oregon, goes 199. And then Andrew Voorhees, guard from USC, who tore his ACL at the NFL Combine, falls to 229, despite he did put up 38 bench reps with the torn ACL, which I talked about this before, but anybody that knows benching actually does entail some knee and some push off the strength from the foot to the knee, to the ass, to the back, to the shoulders, to the up. Andrew Voorhees put on a show at the Combine on the bench, got hurt in the ACL. He's going to miss probably the entire 2023 season, but he's a good guy to just throw in there and let him sit for a year. And then 2024, it's a free 7th-round pick that actually is probably the value of a 4th or a 3rd. 113.3% for Eric DeCosta and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, before we get out of here with these Pittsburgh Steelers, I want to say I appreciate you guys tapping in today in the Player Profile YouTube channel. Click that like button, please. Click the subscribe button and stay tapped to fizzle in. You can follow me on Twitter at Carpentier NFL. And if you are a big fan, my man Matty Cuum is in the chat as well. We do have a Patreon, patreon.com/executives, executives. Go type it in to Patreon right now, or you can go find it on our Twitter account, the Executives on Twitter. We broke down our favorite rookies in this class on Patreon this week. We've broken down our cornerstone rankings, which is 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. So you can look forward to the next year and see where that class stacks up to this class. Because when I was doing that this last week, I traded from the 103 to the 106 in a Superflex rookie draft, and I got 2024 first. Then I went from the 106 to the 202, and I got the 202, the 302, and a 2024 first. So I got 3 2024 first in the Superflex League, and I am a hip-skipply-do happy about it. So you can go follow us, patreon.com/executives, and you can have one-on-one conversations with us about drafts and such. We appreciate you guys all for staying tapped in. Click that like, click the subscribe button. Thank you. Oh, and if you're on Spotify, it's really easy. Just click the stars and give me 5. It takes 8 seconds. Now let's finish out with the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Pittsburgh Steelers, 8th in positional value composite score and 1st in player value composite score, according to my top 200 big board. They made 6 total selections and they got an A, a 112.2% grade, an A, which was 4th overall in this entire class. Again, we'll talk about the NFC tomorrow, not tomorrow, but probably on Monday. And number 1 overall, we talked about the Chiefs already. They finished 1st overall of the entire, all 32 teams. The Baltimore Ravens were 3rd, and the Steelers right here are 4th. The Colts are 5th. So the AFC dominated. Pittsburgh, though, right here. Broderick Jones, tackle from Georgia. They moved up a couple spots to get him at 14. They jumped up from 17 to 14. Best selection. Keanu Benton. I loved Adetomoe Adebore from Northwestern, but Keanu Benton was the other tackle, the other defensive tackle from Wisconsin at the Senior Bowl that just like, just literally like bit arms off of offensive linemen at the Senior Bowl and kicked ass. So 49th overall, Pittsburgh goes back to Wisconsin, takes Keanu Benton. Oh, and then they came back at 132 and they took Nick Herbig, the guy that they probably, leaning towards being like the next, he's not going to be the next TJ Watt, but the next TJ Watt-esque player from Wisconsin is going to be more likely Herbig than obviously Benton, because Benton's a D tackle. Great draft just from those two. And then they also went back to Georgia and took Darnell Washington 93rd overall. as much as I've talked about Darnell Washington being on the down flow over the last month since that Georgia Pro Day, 93rd overall is a good value for a tight end, and that tight end being a 6'8", 275-pound monster that is going to help enhance the run game and the red zone abilities. 93rd overall for Darnell Washington. And then Corey Trice, when it comes to the talent was always there, but there's injury questions. He's 6'3", he's 200 pounds, sitting right there. And you pair him up with the guy that they got first overall in round number 2, Joey Porter, 2 6'3" cornerbacks, Joey Porter Jr., Corey Trice Jr., and then they finished all the draft with a guard dart, Spencer Anderson, guard from Maryland, 112.2% A for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It paid off to be boots on the ground at Wisconsin, boots on the ground at Georgia, and boots on the ground at all these Big Ten schools, Purdue, Maryland, and Penn State, for Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan. Again, I couldn't even tell you guys, this was a good experiment that I just went through right here, looking at all of these teams as far as the grades go across the board. These will all come out in a graphic this week, but also remember, this is all going to be coming out in an article on playerprofiler.com. The AFC side is going to be out today, tonight, and the NFC side will be coming out later this weekend. But shout out to the Chiefs, man. They host the draft and they win the draft. A little home court cooking. They dominated. It's a great week all around for them. The Rams, sneak peek. They're the best team in the NFC when it came to this draft. They didn't have very many selections. So the Rams hit it on. The Ravens, the Steelers, the Colts, and the Denver Broncos finished with an A- as well. It's a good top end of this draft, but it's going to be a lot more teams from the NFC that we're going to talk about tomorrow that sucked. And that is because I gave out 6 Fs, 4 Fs and 2 F-, and they're all from the NFC. So stay tapped in, stay tuned in, and we'll be back talking a little bit more about these draft grades, but from the NFC side. Thank you guys, and have a kick-ass weekend.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out playerprofiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.